Yeah, hi all. So today's topic is about functions. Let me just write the topic heading name as functions. Okay. And as usual, I have a boiler code present here. Right? Now, what is functions? So you can imagine functions as a block of code which will help us to reduce the repetitiveness of our code. For example, let's say we have a bunch of code here, and here we are performing certain action. Okay. And after that, again, we have a bunch of different code here. And again, we are going to perform the same action that we have performed here. Then here, if you see, we can't use a loop because here we are going to perform a different action in between. Okay. And here there are like same action present here, same action, and this is also the same action. Then instead of writing it again, whatever I've written the code, writing it same again here, what I can do is I can create a block here, and whatever is there, whatever the action I want to perform, I'll write it here and I'll give a name here. And this is nothing but the function name I'll give. So whenever I want to use this block of code, instead of writing this, what I'll say, I'll just call the function name. So whatever is its name, I'm just going to type it here. Okay, so just with single line, entire bunch of code is being repeated. So if I want to call here, I'll no more write this function. I'll simply write the function name. Okay, so this will automatically call this whatever code is there. Automatically, it will be repeated, right? So I hope you may have got some idea of visualization, like how actually it's working. Now let's try to understand its code. Okay, like the basic syntax, how to write a function. So for that, let me create a bifurcation. And here, so as we know, what is Java? Java is which type of language? Typed language, right? So whenever we are writing a function, we have to first mention what type of data is going to be returned from that function. So first of all, I'll say the return type we have to mention. Okay. After mentioning the return type, we have to write the function name. Okay. And then a parenthesis to take the parameters. Now, what is the parameters? What's the argument? We'll learn just see in few minutes. And after that, a curly bracket. And whatever the action you want to repeat by calling this function name should be given inside here. Clear? So for example, now what may be the doubt here? Like let's say come to explore the return type. So the return type may be like anything. It may be void, it may be int, it may be string, float, double, anything. Okay, we have understood int, string, float, double, everything. What is void? Void is something like when you are not returning anything from the function, like you are just going to display something. So a function which just displays or which manipulates few things, but it's not going to return anything as an output. It's going to perform some action, it's going to perform some calculation, it's going to do, but it will not return. Then that time we have to mention something as void. Okay. Clear? So we got this part. This is the function name functions. This also we got. This is okay. We can say for time being. And here is the bundle. Now, how to return the data? We are saying we can return, right? So after every function, at last we are going to mention here as the return statement. Okay, return. So if it is an integer type of data, here we are going to return, let's say something 8 after performing some calculation. If the value is 8, we are returning 8. If it is a float, if it is a string, those types of data is being written. Okay, clear? What about void? For void, you can simply say it as return if you want, or even if you completely ignore this, it's completely fine. There won't be any error. But in case you are using here int and you didn't return, you didn't use this statement as last, then it's going to throw an error. Clear? So we just got an syntax like overview how the function should be written. Now let's try to write a function. So what should this function do is that whenever I call this function name, like let's say the function name is myself. So whenever I say myself, it should tell some details about me, like 3 lines of explanation about myself. Okay. So for that, let me write a function. And where do we usually write a function? So if you see, still now, whatever we are doing here, this itself is a function. Oh, where is my pen? Yes. Here, whatever we are writing, here void is what? Void is what? It's a return type. What it is returning? It's returning nothing. And what is main? Main is nothing but the function name. Okay. And by default, main is the first function to which our script will start executing. Okay. And it's a reserved keyword. You can't use this once again. Correct. So we have main, and here it's taking few parameters. What is this? We'll just explore just in a moment. And here you can see one more thing, that is public static. Okay, for time being, let's forget this. Like there are few public, private, and all this part, but these are known as access modifier. Okay. Once we go to the oops class, there we'll explore all this public, private, and one more PPP, protected. Right. So these all three types we will be exploring there. So okay, so for time being, we have to always let's write public static. Okay. So here what I'll write first public static. Let's say I'm going to write public static. And then what will be my return type? I'm going to just display, right? So I'll again say here my return type is void. What's my function name? My function name is myself. Okay. Then parentheses, then a flower bracket. And inside this, I'm going to give few details. So I'll say myself free, duplicate. I am from India, I can say. India. And once again, one more statement. What do I like? I like Pani Puri. Let's say like that. Pani Puri. Okay. So let me just clear this unwanted part. Okay. So what I did is I created a function. Let me just write it here. I created a function which the name of the function is myself. And what is the task of it? Its task is to display this failure. Yeah. So what will happen if I run? Do you think it will execute? Let's check it. So I'll just click on run. And if you see, there is no output. Okay, but why? We were expecting some output, right? Here, there is no output because we have not called this function. Okay, now what do we mean by call the function? For example, in usual terms, function are of two types. One is the inbuilt type, inbuilt, and the other one is user defined, you can say. User defined. Let me close this part here. Okay, now inbuilt functions are functions like, let's say, south. Here, whatever I did south, right? This is also a function because if you see, there is a parenthesis present. Okay, so and whenever you do next in line, those are also a function, right? Those are which type of function? Those are inbuilt function because they are already present with Java. We have not written it. It's already present in the Java's memory somewhere. Okay, we did not worry of that. So whenever you how do you use that? You call that, right? You say the function name, that is south, or if you say next int, that's how you call the function. Similarly, what you have done, you have created your own function. What is your function? User defined. Now, if you want to use it, obviously you have to call it, right? So you have to call the function. So how will you call? By just taking its name as myself. So where will you call it? You'll call it in line number 10. So I'll just say myself. And if I run now, if you see myself Shri, I am from India, I like Pani Puri. Okay, all three got executed. Okay, so what do we understand here? So here we understood one part, that whenever we run our Java program, the first function to be executed or the first function to be always started is with the main. Main is also a function. And inside this, if we call any function, it's going, so here I call the myself. Myself is the inbuilt, like, sorry, user defined function. That is nothing but I have defined my own function, which is here. And here, if you see, here inside this, I have three values. That is like three work conditions I have. Like here, I'm just printing about myself. Clear? Okay. So I hope you have got about the functions, how they are working. Now, let's try to update it. like let's try to level up. Now, what we want is we want to pass some function like arguments to it. Okay, for understanding that, let's write a function to add two numbers. Okay, to add two numbers, let's write a function. So for that, what I can do is I'm going to say, and if you see here, as it is a void, so I didn't use return. So even if I could have used here return, it could be completely fine. I just need to keep a ending statement. And if I run it, you see, it still works fine. Okay, as it is void. So even if I ignore this, it's fine. Now what I'll do, I need to create a function. And this function is for what? Calculating two numbers. So as usual, I'm writing public static. Why I'm writing this, we'll understand in OOPS class, something known as access modifiers. Then after writing public static, what I'm going to say? Which type of data will be returning after addition? Like let's say we are adding two numbers, integer numbers. Obviously, then integer will be the output, right? So we'll be returning int. Let's say the function name is addition. And here we'll say parenthesis. This. Okay. Now, what we'll do is we'll say a equal to 5. Great. And b equal to, let's say, 7. Great. And then what I'll do is I'll say return a plus b. Okay. And here I just didn't specify the data type, which we have to specify int. Okay. And here I'm going to close the end statement, right? So what should have happened whenever I call the add function, it should return me a plus b. So let's try to call it. So here I'll remove this myself as I don't want to print any data about me. And I just want to add the summation of this, that is 5 and 7. So let's say I'll call the function as add. Clear? I'll give the end statement. So what do you think? Do you think it will get executed? Do you think the output will be 12? Yeah, let's check it. Okay, let's see what's the output. Oh, it's nothing. Why? Because here we are returning the value. We are not displaying it. There is a difference. We are not displaying on the screen. We are returning it. So whenever we call this add function, what it happens is it goes to this 9th line. Inside this, it finds out the two numbers, 5 and 7. It calculates it sums that number, and then it returns. Where does it return? It returns back to the 16th line. So now in the 16th line, the answer is present, but we did not store it or we did not print it. So that's why the output is not displayed. So what we'll do is we'll try to store it in a variable. So first of all, we are getting an int type of data. So I'll say int answer equal to add. And then I'm going to say south. What I'm going to south? Answer. Okay. And if I run it now, so if you see, the answer is 12. Clear? Got it? So this a plus b, where it came? It came to this add, that is 12. Then this 12 went in this answer variable, answer box. And from there, I just printed it in 17. Clear? Got it? Okay. But most of the times, what happens is that functions are usually written to take the arguments, take the data, and then perform the calculation. What do I mean by that is we never try to initiate any variables or we never try to take any input in the function. Okay, why? Because functions are like block of code which will perform some action. So here, now we are just having two lines, but actually in real case scenario, there will be a bunch of codes are present before. And here we'll get, let's say, two numbers which are completely random. We don't have any control. And we want the summation of this. In that time, we have to pass this thing to our function. And we don't want to take any new input, new data here. Okay. So for that purpose, there is like 90% of the time, what we do is we pass the value to the function instead of taking the input. There may be few cases we also take the input, but most of the time we pass the value. Now let's try to pass the value to the function then. So then if you want to pass, then obviously we have to remove these two lines from here. And I'll declare those two lines here. Okay, great. Now what I want is I want to pass this 5 and this 7 to my add function. Clear? So if I want to pass there, first of all, where, so as I said, Java comes to the main function here, and then it executes step by step. So here it's declared as A, here B is declared, very good. Here when it comes to this line, it sees add function. And when it sees add function, it goes to this add. So while going to the add here, we'll try to pass this A and B inside this. So I'll just say A comma B. Okay. Now, if you see, what is this known as? This is known as arguments. Arguments. We are passing the arguments. Okay. Now, if you see, if I hover on this, you'll be able to see an error saying that in the type function is not applicable for the arguments int comma int. Why did it gave error? Because when it is going to this function, here it noticed that it is not accepting any values. Okay, like it is not accepting any arguments. So that's why we are getting an error. So to avoid this error, what we'll do is we'll get the two arguments here. Let's say we are accepting which type of data here? It is integer, right? So we have to say int, then let's say num1, comma, again I'll say int if you want, and num2. Clear? Now, if you see here, I have used A and B. So even if I give here A and here I can give it as B. Okay, now if you see, there is no error here. So let's just try to understand what happened here. So as soon as I say A equal to 5, B equal to 7, these are passed here. Okay, and then I call this function. Inside this function, both the values have been gone. So here it is 5 and here it is 7. Now it is getting the reference like what is A and what is B, and therefore there is no error. Okay, so if I try to run it, and now if I try to execute, let's see what we get the output. Okay, great. So if you see, we get an output, we get the answer as 12, which is completely right. Okay, now, okay, let's first understand few terms. This A and B, whatever I'm passing, this is known as arguments, which I already mentioned. Okay, and this, which is accepting the value, this is known as parameters. Okay, or we can also say this as formal parameter, and this is as actual parameter, those part. But the most of them like usually prefer, and also usually prefer to say arguments and parameter. So this is the basic thing. Then after this, what to be done is now let's try to here, instead of returning A plus B, what I'll do is, let's say I'll also update the value of A plus plus. So we have learned this is unary type of operator. This will just increase the value of A, and here now instead of 12, we should get an output as 13 because we are just getting. But after that, what I'll do is I'll also say here south A. South. Oh. Let me write south A. Okay, let's first come here. And let's try to see what we have done is I got the two numbers. I have passed it. So here it will go 5 and 7. And here the 5 is being updated as 6. So 6 plus 7 is now 13. So this 13 is returned to this line. And the answer, the 13 is stored. So here we are sure the 13 will be displayed. Right? But what about this 18th line? That is printing A. What do you think? What may be the value? Will it be 5 or will it be 6? It will be 5. Yeah. Why? Let's first check if it is 5 or not. And if you see here, the value you can see is 5. Why it is 5? Just 1 second. Yeah. Why it is 5? Because here there is something called as scope block scope variables. We can say something, a keyword for that. So here, whenever we say 5, like, okay, let's imagine how it actually works, like how in memory have actually the working takes place. So let's assume this is our Java memory, and here whenever we call the function, here it is known as cell stack. Okay, so by default our main function will always be called. So let's say this is our main function, which will be occupying some memory space inside it. And here, whatever the variables we have created, A, B, and all, those will be stored here, will be created here, right? And from this main function, what we did, we called our new function, that is add. So whenever we call a new function, we again create one more function stack. We just stack a function above, and that is add. Okay. And here also we have the variables A and B, and which we just added. But whenever we create a new instance, like a new space is allotted, here the variables are again created. So this A and B is in this block itself, and it's nowhere related to this block. Okay, so whatever you do, addition, subtraction with this, it will be having the meaning of that only in this block. Okay, if you try to access this A outside here, okay, let's say here instead of A, I say it's C. And if you try to do C here, if you try to print C here in the main function, this is wrong. This is not valid. Why? Because it has the scope in this block itself, that is in this function itself, right? So what's happening now is you are trying to access the A, which is here. Okay, and this A is not accessed. Okay, so whatever we just discussed now, this is called as calling a function which is called by value. Okay, whereas in Java, every time we just whenever the function is called, it's always by call by value. So we never pass the original value to the function. Whereas in C++, what happens is that we call it by reference. What do I mean by reference now? So whenever we call the function, here if you update anything, the original C will also be updated. Okay, but let's not focus on that. As for Java, we are just focused on what? Call by value. Clear? So I hope this one concept is clear. Okay, so once this all the addition function, once the work of this function is done, it just empties the space. So the work is done, so it empties. Then it comes back to main. Once even the main function work is done, then again it removes all the data and is empty. So our memory is empty at the last when we close the function, when we close the program, right? So yeah. So what all we have discussed? We have discussed this. Yeah. Now what we'll do is let's write a function to calculate the factorial of a number. Okay. Now, what is factorial? This can be best understood with the help of example itself. For example, 5 factorial is nothing but 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. 4 factorial is nothing but 4 into 3 into 2 into 1, and so on. So 1 factorial is nothing but 1. Okay, even for 0 factorial is nothing but 1. Okay, so we have to write a function which will take an input, which will take an argument, or which will take a parameter as a number, for example, 5. Then after that, we have to perform the calculations, or set of code has to be written. And whatever is its output, that's we have to return. Okay. So let's try to do this. So for this, as usual, I'm going to write public static, and let's say my function name is fact, and here I'm going to curly brace. So I'm going to accept one number, right? So for that, I'll say int num. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll go inside this function. Okay, so if you see, we got an error here that is saying that return type for the method is missing. So what is missing? Return type. So what we are going to return here? We are going to return one integer value, right? After calculation. So I am going to specify int. Now, if you see, there shouldn't be any error. and let's hover on this. This method must return a result of type int. Okay, we'll return it. Just have a patience. Don't give the error right now. Okay, now once we got this num, what I'll say for, let's say we'll start with x equal to 1, and we'll say again we have to say int x equal to 1. Then we'll go run our loop up till where? Up till x is less than or equal to our num. Great. And then what we'll do, we'll keep on updating our x. And inside this, what we are going to do is we are going to, okay, let me create a variable for fact. So int fact equal to, initially the fact is 1, factorial is 1. And here inside this, I'll update fact is nothing but equal to whatever is my original fact into x. Okay, this type. So we have done a lot of things in for loop. So need not explain again here. And once I have done all, so once this loop is completed, so factorial, we will be getting the factorial value. And here I'm going to just return what I'm returning, fact. Here, and I'll close the statement. Okay, let's quickly try to check what has happened here. So let's say we'll be passing a number 5 where we are not yet done, but let's say the 5 has been passed here. And here we have initialized one variable, starting the fact is 1. Just 1 second, why this open? This, okay. Yeah. So int fact equal to 1. Then what I did is I started my loop, which will start with 1. Okay. And it will go up till the number is equal to num. So here we have passed 5, right? So it will go 1, 2, 3, 4, and up to 5. So it will start from here and go up to here. And what it is doing inside, it is just updating its fact. So original fact, whatever is there, that is nothing but first it is 1 into what? Presently it is 1. So 1 into 1. Next time what it will do? Again 1 into 2 it will do, because 1 into 1 here it is 1. Then it is 1 into 2. Then it will take this value 2 here. Then 2 into 3. So it will keep on updating here. And at last we'll get one value. That value is being returned here as a fact. Okay. So I hope this is clear. Now let's try to call this function. So what I'll do is I'll remove this unwanted part. And here I'm going to say, let's say I'm directly going to display south factorial of where I can create one variable. So let's say int num equal to, and it's not necessary this num and this num should be same, because we just now discussed that it is not having that scope to go there. So here I can say num1 just for differentiation. Num1 equal to, let's say 5. So factorial of plus num1, I'm giving here plus again, equal to, here I'm going to call directly the function name. The function name is fact, right? So I'm going to directly say fact, and what I'm going to pass is num1 inside this num. Okay. So whatever the value is being returned, that is the integer, that I'm directly being printed. Okay, so even this is the possible thing which we can. And if I just run it, so factorial of 5 is 120. Clear? Any doubts? I don't feel there will there will be any doubts here. So everything is clear, I feel. So what all we have, let's quickly recap what all we have discussed. So we can memorize function as a block of code in which we are going to write all the actions that we want to perform. And for this, we'll be giving a name. This is nothing but the function name. So whenever we want to use it, we'll just call this name. Okay. And whenever we want to give any data to this function, this is known as arguments. Okay. How we give arguments? We give it by saying the name, that is calling the function name. and arguments. But just writing this much is not enough. Here inside, we should also take the argument that. So here in this, I'll say, here it is nothing but parameter, we can say parameter, same thing. So here, if there is one parameter, there should be one argument. Okay. And here we should also mention which type of data is being returned. So from here, if it is returning int, here you have to mention int. If it is returning string, here you have to mention string. So that return part also has to be taken care. Then apart from that, there's nothing much in this. Okay. So this was the main part. Okay. Yeah. So once you have understood still here, now the next part which we'll be learning is function overloading. Okay. Now, what is function overloading? So to understand this, let's try to come back again to the addition of function which we have here. Okay. Now, here if you see, here there are two arguments, which is int a and int b. But what if we wanted to add three numbers? That is a plus b plus c. Or what if we wanted to add two float numbers? So float a and float b. Okay, then this function won't be valid, right? Then you could have again created here the function name is add. Then you should have said like add one for ABC. Then you could have said add two, a new function for float a and b. So if you are thinking of this, then luckily in Java, we have a function called as, we have a concept called as function loading, which will help us to avoid this part. So here, what we can do is, we can just duplicate this part, whatever I have written here. We can just duplicate this part. I'm duplicating it 3 times. And if you see the function name, I'm keeping it as constant. But here I'm going to increase one argument. So int c. Okay. And here I'm going to do a plus b plus b. I'm returning c. And here I'm going to say float. And here also I'm going to say float. Okay. And obviously when we do addition of two float, we'll be returning a float. Okay. So if you see now the function name is same. If you see here also it is add, here also it is add and add. Because they are performing the same type of action, right? So we need not give them different name. But however, we can pass on different arguments. Okay, so the main two criteria for function overloading is, okay, function overloading, the main two criteria is, first one, it should at least have different parameters. Number of parameters should be different. Number of parameters, okay, should be different. And second thing, if number of parameters you want to keep the same, the data type should be different. Data type of parameter to be different. Okay, as you see here it is float, here it is int. Yeah. So if you have these two things, then we can say it's like a function overload. Clear? Yeah, then that's it with the function class. So in next classes, we'll try to use much more functions, and yeah, we'll have a good practice.